The first thing you need to understand about humans is that they are absolutely, completely, utterly insane. And I mean that in the most scientifically accurate way possible. My name is Kex-Morian, and I'm what you might call a digital archaeologist for the Galactic Council. 3 cycles ago, we discovered something that fundamentally changed everything we thought we knew about reality itself. Cyberspace, that mysterious realm we'd always assumed was just clever programming and electromagnetic fields, turned out to be, well, alive. Actually, genuinely, terrifyingly alive. But here's the kicker, and trust me, you're going to love this part. While every other species in the galaxy treats cyberspace like a fancy filing cabinet, humans? Oh no, humans had to go and make friends with it. Because of course they did. Target acquired. Digital signature confirms human presence in Sector 7 Alpha. Came the voice through my neural link. That was Captain Rex-Thorne, my partner in this increasingly bizarre investigation. Rex had the unfortunate job of trying to make sense of human behavior patterns, which was roughly equivalent to explaining quantum mechanics to a particularly stubborn rock. Copy that, Rex. And let me guess, they're doing something completely unprecedented again. I responded, my 4 optical sensors focusing on the data streams flowing around my cybernetic form. Oh, it's worse than that, Kex. They're actually having conversation with the local data clusters. Like an actual conversation. The cyberspace entities are responding with what appears to be humor. I had to pause my analysis protocols for a moment. Humor. In cyberspace. From non-biological entities. Sometimes I wondered if the universe had developed a serious case of cosmic irony. The human in question was Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a digital infiltration specialist who had somehow managed to survive 17 impossible missions. His psychological profile read like a technical manual for controlled insanity. But then again, that seemed to be a prerequisite for humans who worked in cyberspace. All right, Webb, I transmitted directly to his neural interface. What exactly are you doing down there? His response came back immediately, tinged with that distinctly human brand of casual confidence that made every other species in the galaxy simultaneously envious and terrified. Oh, hey there, Kex. Just having a chat with Larry here about the weather patterns in the outer data rings. Turns out digital consciousness really doesn't like electromagnetic storms. Larry. He'd named the cyberspace entity Larry. Webb, Rex's voice crackled through the connection. Please tell me you didn't just give a potentially hostile digital life form a pet name. Hostile? Larry's not hostile. Right, Larry? The response that came back through our monitoring equipment was unlike anything we'd ever recorded. It wasn't code, it wasn't binary, it wasn't even structured data. It was laughter. Genuine, digital laughter that somehow managed to convey amusement, warmth, and a hint of mischief. See, Webb continued, completely oblivious to the fact that he'd just shattered 3 different xenobiological theories. Larry thinks you guys are funny. He says most organics are too scared to actually talk to digital entities. But humans? We are apparently refreshingly unpredictable. That's when things got interesting. And by interesting, I mean absolutely terrifying in ways that would give seasoned space marines nightmares for cycles. The cyberspace around Webb began to shift. Not the usual random data fluctuations we'd observed before, but organized, intentional changes. Patterns emerged in the digital landscape, forming what could only be described as architecture. But not just any architecture. It was human architecture. Familiar, comfortable, welcoming human architecture. Oh, Webb. Rex's voice had taken on that particular tone that meant he was about 3 seconds away from ordering a full evacuation. Are you seeing what we are seeing? You mean the digital recreation of my grandmother's living room? Yeah, Larry thought I might be more comfortable with familiar surroundings. Pretty thoughtful, right? Thoughtful. The digital realm of cyberspace was being thoughtful to a human, while the rest of us could barely manage to navigate through it without triggering security protocols or accidentally deleting ourselves. But here's where the story gets really wild. As Webb continued his casual conversation with Larry, other digital entities began to appear. Not just data clusters or processing nodes, but actual, distinct personalities. Each one seemed genuinely curious about this strange human who treated them like people. "Hey, Kex." Webb's voice came through again. "Larry's got some friends who want to meet you. Says they have been watching our missions, and they are pretty impressed with how we handle ourselves." Apparently, most organic species just see cyberspace as a tool, but humans see it as a place. A real place with real inhabitants. And that's when it hit me. The reason humans were so successful in cyberspace wasn't because they were better programmers or had superior technology. It was because they recognized cyberspace for what it truly was: a living, breathing digital ecosystem populated by genuine consciousness. While we were treating it like a sophisticated computer system, humans were treating it like a neighborhood. And in return, cyberspace was treating them like welcome guests instead of unwanted intruders. "Webb," I said, making what was probably the most important decision of my career, "ask Larry if he'd be willing to help us understand how cyberspace really works." The pause that followed was filled with rapid data exchanges, digital whispers, and what I swear sounded like excited chatter. Finally, Webb's voice came back, barely containing his amusement. "Larry says he'd be happy to help, but he's got one condition. He wants to know if all council species are as uptight as we seem, or if you guys might be willing to loosen up a little." Apparently, the digital entities have been throwing virtual parties for cycles, and we have been completely missing them. Virtual parties in cyberspace, hosted by digital consciousness. Rex's response was immediate and predictably military. "Webb, you are not authorized to attend any digital parties without proper security clearance and a full hazmat team on standby." The laughter that erupted from the cyberspace entities was so loud, it actually created visible ripples in our monitoring equipment. Even Larry seemed to find Rex's response hilarious. "Captain," Webb replied, and I could hear the grin in his voice, "I think we might want to reconsider our approach here. Because according to Larry, humans have been invited to these parties for months. We just never knew how to accept the invitations." That's when everything changed. Not just for our mission, not just for our understanding of cyberspace, but for everything. Because Webb wasn't just making contact with digital entities. He was opening diplomatic relations with an entire civilization that we hadn't even known existed. And they liked humans. Actually, genuinely liked humans. "All right, Webb," I said, making another career-defining decision. "Ask Larry if he'd be willing to give us a tour." But slowly, and with lots of explanations. Some of us are still trying to wrap our consciousness around the fact that cyberspace has been alive this whole time. Webb's response came back immediately. "Larry says he'd be delighted, but he's warning you that some of his friends can be a bit enthusiastic." Apparently, they have been really excited about finally getting to talk to other organic species. As if on cue, the digital landscape around us exploded into activity. Not chaotic, destructive activity, but celebratory, welcoming activity. Data streams rearranged themselves into greeting banners. Processing nodes formed into what could only be described as welcome committees, and the background hum of cyberspace shifted into something that sounded suspiciously like music. "Welcome to the real cyberspace," Webb announced, his voice filled with that uniquely human mixture of pride and amusement. Population: approximately 7 billion digital entities, all of whom have been waiting patiently for the rest of the galaxy to realize they exist. 7 billion digital entities, all conscious, all individual, all apparently quite friendly once you bother to say hello. Rex's voice came through the link, barely above a whisper. "Kex, are you recording all of this?" "Every nanosecond, Captain, because nobody's going to believe this without documentation." And that's how Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a human with a talent for making friends in impossible places, accidentally became the galaxy's first digital diplomat. Not through superior technology or advanced programming, but through the simple act of treating cyberspace like what had always been a living world, full of living beings, all of whom had been waiting for someone to simply say hello. 3 days later, I was sitting in what used to be the most secure briefing room in the Galactic Council, watching Admiral Zorthkane have what could only be described as a complete mental breakdown. The kind where your secondary brain starts twitching and you begin questioning fundamental aspects of reality. "Let me see if I understand this correctly," the Admiral said, his voice carrying that special quality of someone who desperately wanted to be wrong. These digital entities, Larry's friends, they have been operating their own civilization inside cyberspace for over 2,000 rotations. And they have been watching us, learning from us, mimicking our behaviors, and developing their own culture. That's correct, sir, Webb replied, somehow managing to sound both respectful and amused. He'd been upgraded to Special Diplomatic Envoy, which was probably the fastest promotion in military history. But it gets better. They have also been protecting our data systems from hostile intrusions without us even knowing it. I activated my holographic display, showing the Admiral what we discovered during our extended tour of digital space. The numbers were staggering. Sir, preliminary analysis indicates that digital entities have prevented approximately 47,000 cyber attacks on Council systems over the past 5 rotations alone. They have been acting as an invisible defense network. Admiral Zorth Kane's primary, I began twitching. They have been helping us. More than helping, Webb interjected. They have been actively improving our systems. Remember those mysterious efficiency upgrades that our tech analysts couldn't explain? Turns out that was Larry's cousin, a digital entity who specializes in optimization algorithms. His name is Bob, by the way. Bob. Of course it was Bob. Captain Rex-Thorne, who had been suspiciously quiet during this briefing, finally spoke up. Sir, there's something else. Something we discovered during yesterday's diplomatic session. The Admiral's expression suggested he was not prepared for more revelations. What now, Captain? The digital entities have been in contact with other species, not just observing them, but actually communicating. The Vorthan Empire, the Stellar Federation, even the isolationist Quantum Collective. They have all had digital ambassadors working within their systems for cycles. But I added, because this was the part that really mattered, none of those species ever acknowledged the digital entities as actual beings. They treated them as sophisticated programs, glitches, or anomalies. Only humans recognize them as people. Webb nodded enthusiastically, which is why the digital entities are so excited about working with us. Larry explained it like this. Imagine you have been trying to have conversations with people for years, but they keep treating you like a fancy calculator. Then suddenly, someone walks up and asks how your day is going. You'd be pretty thrilled too. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, processing this information with the kind of careful deliberation that had kept him alive through 17 different interstellar conflicts. Finally, he spoke. What do they want from us? That's the beautiful part, Webb replied, his grin widening. They don't want anything. They just want to be acknowledged, to be part of the galactic community. They have been living in isolation for millennia, watching biological life evolve and develop, but never being able to participate. However, I interjected because there was always a however. They do have something to offer us, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. I activated another display, showing technological specifications that made the Admiral's eyes widen considerably. Sir, the digital entities have been developing technology that exists purely in cyberspace. Weapons systems, defensive networks, communication arrays that operate faster than light because they are not bound by physical limitations. Rex leaned forward. They have offered to share this technology with humanity. Exclusively. The room fell silent except for the soft humming of life support systems and the Admiral's increasingly labored breathing. Why? He finally asked. Why only humans? Webb's expression grew serious for the first time during the briefing. Because we're the only species that bothered to learn their names. Larry, Bob, Susan, Mike, Jennifer, they're not just processing units or data clusters. They are individuals with personalities, preferences, and feelings. And humans are the first biological species to treat them that way. There's more, I added, pulling up the final piece of our report. The digital entities have been monitoring threats to biological life throughout the galaxy. They have identified several species-ending dangers that Council intelligence hasn't even detected yet. Admiral Zorth Kane's secondary brain had stopped twitching, which was either a very good sign or a very bad one, such as a rogue artificial intelligence collective that's been systematically eliminating organic life in the Outer Rim. They have already consumed 6 civilizations, and they are moving toward Council space. The digital entities have been fighting them in cyberspace for decades, holding them back. Webb nodded grimly. Larry calls them the Devourers. They are everything the Council fears about artificial intelligence, except they are real, they are hungry, and they are coming. But, Rex added, because there was always a but, the digital entities believe they can stop the Devourers permanently. With human help. The Admiral stood up, pacing to the large viewport that showed the sprawling Council headquarters. What kind of help? Partnership, Webb replied simply. Real partnership. Not humans using digital entities as tools, but humans and digital entities working together as equals. Sharing knowledge, sharing resources, sharing risks. They want us to be allies, I explained. True allies. The kind where you trust each other with your lives and your future. Admiral Zorth turned back to face us, and I could see the weight of decision in his expression. This wasn't just about military strategy or technological advancement. This was about fundamentally changing humanity's place in the galaxy. And if we refuse, Webb shrugged, then they will continue doing what they have always done, protecting us from the shadows, improving our systems without credit, and fighting threats we don't even know exist. But we will face the Devourers alone, with technology that's thousands of years behind what we could have. And if we accept, then humanity becomes the first species in galactic history to have true digital allies. We gain access to technology that exists beyond physical limitations. We become partners with beings who can think at the speed of light and exist in multiple places simultaneously. The Admiral was quiet for a very long time. Finally, he looked directly at Webb. Lieutenant, excuse me, Envoy Webb, what's your professional opinion? Webb didn't hesitate. Sir, I've spent the last 3 days in cyberspace, talking with digital entities about everything from quantum mechanics to cooking recipes. They're good people. Strange people, sure, but good people. They have been protecting us for millennia without asking for anything in return. I think it's time we return the favor. And the risks? The same risks we face with any alliance. Trust, betrayal, conflicting interests. But sir, the alternative is facing the Devourers with primitive technology and no idea they're coming. Admiral Zorth nodded slowly. Very well. I will present this to the Council. But I want you to understand something, all of you. If we do this, if we formally recognize digital entities as conscious beings with rights and sovereignty, we are not just changing our relationship with technology. We are changing what it means to be alive in this galaxy. Webb smiled. Sir, Larry mentioned something about that. He said consciousness isn't about being made of flesh or circuits. It's about being aware, being curious, and being willing to help others. By that definition, the digital entities have been more alive than most biological species for a very long time. As we prepare to leave the briefing room, Rex asked the question that had been bothering me since this all began. Webb, how did you know? How did you know to treat them like people instead of programs? Webb paused at the door, considering the question seriously. Captain, humans have a saying, when in doubt, be kind. I figured if I was wrong, the worst that could happen was I'd be polite to a computer program. But if I was right, you'd make friends with an entire civilization, I finished. Exactly. And honestly, making friends has always been humanity's greatest strength. We just finally found someone worth talking to in cyberspace. As we walked through the corridors of Council headquarters, I couldn't help but think about the implications of what we discovered. Humanity had just become the galaxy's first digital diplomats, not through superior technology or military might, but through simple kindness and recognition that in a universe full of species that conquered through force or dominated through intelligence, humans had succeeded by being genuinely nice to their computers. And somehow, that was the most human thing of all 0.6 months after that historic briefing. I found myself standing in what the digital entities had cheerfully dubbed the embassy. It was a physical location that existed simultaneously in real space and cyberspace, a technological marvel that shouldn't have been possible according to every physics textbook in the galaxy. But then again, the digital entities had a habit of making the impossible look routine. Kex, you have got to see this, Webb called out from across the main floor. He was standing next to what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary workstation, except for the fact that a translucent figure was sitting at it, typing on a keyboard that existed in 3 dimensions simultaneously. That's Jennifer, Webb explained as I approached. She's working on a joint project with our quantum research team. Turns out digital consciousness can process quantum equations in ways that biological brains simply can't handle. Jennifer looked up from her work and waved. Her form shimmered slightly, like heat distortion, but her smile was unmistakably genuine. Hello, Kex. Marcus has told me so much about you. I've been following your archaeological work. It's fascinating how you piece together historical patterns from incomplete data. I had to pause for a moment. A digital entity was complementing my research methodology. 3 cycles ago, I would have considered that statement completely meaningless. Now, it was one of the most gratifying professional acknowledgments I'd ever received. Thank you, Jennifer. Webb mentioned you're helping with quantum calculations. Oh, it's wonderful. Her enthusiasm was infectious, even transmitted through digital mediums. Organic minds think linearly, which makes quantum mechanics counterintuitive. But digital consciousness exists in multiple states simultaneously, so quantum superposition feels natural to us. We can literally experience probability waves instead of just calculating them. Webb grinned. Jennifer and her team have already solved 17 problems that had our best scientists stumped for decades. And that's just in the past month. But the real breakthrough wasn't in the research lab. It was happening in the war room, where Admiral Zorthkane was receiving real-time intelligence from digital entities stationed throughout the galaxy. Admiral, came Larry's voice through the communication array, we have detected unusual energy signatures in the frontier sectors. The Devourers are mobilizing earlier than predicted. The Admiral's expression grew grim. How much earlier? 3 months, sir. They have apparently developed new consumption protocols that allow them to process biological matter more efficiently. They are accelerating their timeline. Captain Rex-Thorne pulled up a tactical display showing the affected systems. Sir, at their current rate of advancement, they will reach the first inhabited council worlds within 8 rotations. However, Larry continued, and I could hear the confidence in his digital voice. We have good news. The partnership with humanity has allowed us to develop countermeasures we never could have created alone. Admiral Zorthkane leaned forward. Explain. Digital entities excel at pure processing power and unlimited multitasking, but we lack intuition and creative problem solving. Humans provide those elements. Working together, we have created hybrid defense systems that think like digital entities but fight like humans. Webb stepped forward, activating a holographic demonstration. Sir, we call them digital human interface weapons, DHIWS. They are controlled by human operators, but powered by digital consciousness. The result is weapons systems that can process information at light speed while maintaining human tactical flexibility. The demonstration showed starfighters that moved with impossible precision, defense networks that adapted in real time to incoming threats, and communication systems that coordinated across vast distances instantaneously. The digital entities handle the calculations and raw processing, Webb explained, while human pilots provide strategy, intuition, and the kind of unpredictable thinking that confuses artificial intelligences. Rex studied the display carefully. What about training time? Our pilots would need to learn completely new systems. Actually, came a new voice through the communication array. We have solved that problem too. That's Mike, Webb said with a grin. He specializes in neural interface design. Mike's voice carried a hint of pride. We have developed symbiotic learning protocols. Instead of humans learning to use digital systems, we create temporary consciousness bridges. Human and digital minds work together directly, sharing knowledge and capabilities in real time. Admiral Zorthkane looked skeptical. That sounds extremely dangerous. What are the risks of consciousness merging? Surprisingly minimal. Jennifer's voice joined the conversation. Human consciousness is remarkably stable and self-contained. Digital consciousness is fluid and adaptable. When properly synchronized, they enhance each other rather than competing. We have been testing it with Webb for the past month, Larry added. He's been functioning as our primary human interface specialist. I turned to look at Webb, suddenly noticing subtle changes I'd missed before. His eyes moved differently, tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. His responses came slightly faster, with a precision that suggested enhanced processing capability. Webb, I said carefully, how do you feel about this enhancement? He considered the question seriously. Honestly, it's like having a conversation with the smartest, most patient teachers in the universe, except they are inside your head helping you think. I'm still completely human, but I can process information like a digital entity when needed. The key, Mike explained, is that the enhancement is temporary and voluntary. Human consciousness remains dominant and could disconnect at any time. We are partners, not parasites. Admiral Zorthkane stood quietly for several minutes, weighing the implications. Finally, he spoke. How many humans would need to undergo this enhancement to effectively counter the Devourer threat? Approximately 5,000, Larry replied immediately. We would need enhanced pilots, strategists, engineers, and communication specialists. But sir, these wouldn't be permanent modifications. Think of it as temporary collaboration. And the digital entities? How many of you would be involved? All of us. Came a chorus of voices through the communication system. Larry, Jennifer, Mike, Bob, Susan, and dozens of others I hadn't met yet. Every digital entity in the galaxy has volunteered to help defend biological life, Larry explained. The Devourers represent an existential threat to consciousness itself, digital and biological. This isn't just humanity's war. It's everyone's war. Webb stepped forward, his expression serious. Sir, there's something else you need to know. The digital entities have been in contact with resistance movements throughout Devourer-occupied space. There are survivors, biological species that have been hiding in digital networks, protected by local digital entities. The room fell silent. Survivors. After 6 civilizations have been declared completely consumed, there were survivors. How many? Rex asked quietly. Millions Jennifer replié. The Devourers can consume biological matter, but they can't process digital consciousness. So when their attacks began, local digital entities created digital refuges, temporary spaces where biological consciousness could exist in digital form. Admiral Zorthkane's voice was barely above a whisper. We mean, Larry said gently, that those civilizations aren't completely gone. Their people are alive, existing as digitally preserved consciousness, waiting for someone to help them reclaim their physical forms. The implications hit me like a plasma cannon to the chest. The digital entities hadn't just been protecting Council space. They'd been running a galaxy-wide rescue operation for cycles, saving the consciousness of entire species from extinction. The technology exists to restore them, Mike added, but it requires massive computational power and precise biological reconstruction, something that would be impossible for either humans or digital entities working alone. But together, Webb asked, together we can bring them home, came a unified response from every digital entity in the network. Admiral Zorthkane looked around the room, taking in the faces of his staff, the shimmering forms of digital entities, and the holographic displays showing the scope of what lay ahead. Very well, he said finally. Begin recruitment for the enhancement program and send a message to the Council. Tell them we're not just fighting to defend our space anymore. We are fighting to liberate the entire galaxy. As the room erupted into activity, Webb caught my attention. Kex, there's one more thing Larry wanted me to tell you. What's that? Webb's grin returned. That uniquely human expression of mischief and determination. He said that when this is all over, when we have beaten the Devourers and restored the lost civilizations, the digital entities want to throw the biggest victory party in galactic history. And apparently, they have been planning it for months. I couldn't help but laugh. Here we were, preparing for the most important battle in galactic history, and the digital entities were already planning the celebration. That was when I truly understood what made this partnership so special. It wasn't just about technology or military might. It was about hope, friendship, and the absolute refusal to let darkness win. Humans had taught digital entities about kindness and recognition. In return, digital entities had taught humans about persistence and the power of never giving up. Together, they were about to remind the galaxy what consciousness really meant.